Welcome to Real Life Without Excuses. I am America's Supermom.
Yeah, I love how we had our own fall festival. Whenever,
oh yeah,
that was just too funny. That was fun.
Recognize who you are, what you'd like to see in your life, and who you'd like to partner with.
I love that. And, that's coming from a place of power.
She makes. I have written with women who have been through things I could not even imagine. You can tell the old story. Don't dwell on the old story because most of your friends are not trauma counselors.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Gotta love technology. So many snags, snafus, and whatever, but we just learned to keep it moving and roll right with it. So excited to be here today. We have our men's panel back again. And I just love it when the men come. I don't know if it's just because everybody's so handsome or what. It's like we get so many higher numbers, right? Because the men are on. So I'm excited for them to be here with us today. We're going to be talking about empowerment with money. So we were talking about a few questions behind the scenes before we hit record. So I'm excited to talk about it because I think it's a topic that a lot of people are so engaged in, but we kind of don't talk about it together. I don't know. It's just kind of like this make-believe story that we talk about in our own minds and we don't share it with each other. So I'm excited to talk about it. So I am LaChelle, also known as America's Supermom, and I am so excited to have these panel conversations. I'm a vitality coach. I help people navigate through chaos and transform that into clarity and confidence with a smile. And I'm the mother of 15 children. So when it comes to money, I think that's the topic that I talk about a lot because my kids are always growing. They need something. Their shoes are too small. They're always hungry. So it's always about food. Okay. Money is just kind of like a common conversation. So that is me. I'm excited about today. So Misty, over to you.
Well, hello. And I was part of the snafu. So thank you for everyone bearing with me on that, on the technology. I'm Misty Lee, Campground TBD Publishing. I am the mother of 4, not 15. I have one disabled child that I take care of full time at home here in Western Arkansas. And sometimes he feels like 15. And I'm excited to talk about the money and empowering. And as some of you know, I'm very minimalist. I live in a tiny, tiny home. And so money has taken entirely different. I have a very different view on it than I had a few years ago. So I'm really excited to see everyone's viewpoint on this. And how about you, Miss Raschell?
Hi, my name is Raschell Harlingten, and my fun times with the internet today was most joyful. Could not get on, so here I am. Though I am the mother of 2, though sometimes I feel like it's 20 with all the friends that show up in my house. But yeah, I'm the founder of Roots for Success. I'm a transformational coach and podcaster of the Transformational Soul Talks. For me, money is an interesting topic because, again, it is something that I always try to have a feeling of abundance. Even though sometimes you may not always feel abundant, there is always ways to kind of tweak that. So this should be a very interesting topic today. Looking forward to it.
I am too. So we're going to get these men right on, because I think an hour is just not enough time, really. I say this all the time, but we have great people who join us behind the scenes, all of you guys that are watching and commenting. We love that engagement because this is how things change for everybody, is having these conversations, sharing perspectives because we can all grow and learn from each other.
Mhm.
I think I like to say that I listen to everybody because all of my kids don't have the same personality. So someone else may say something and it's like, man, my son Joshua thinks that way. And so it can help me to be able to communicate to him better. So I love this conversation. So I want to give a shout out to Mary, Paul. We have Shauna who is joining us, Kimberly, Dina, Nancy, just JR. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm trying to get better with the comments, y'all, because I get distracted.
I was impressed. I was like, LaChelle's just reading these right out of the comments. Like, she has stepped her game up. I like it.
I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying because I want to include everybody, but
Well,
I'll go.
bravo.
Okay. So without further ado, let's have these men come on because this is a topic that we want to make sure that we can at least cover some of the highlights. So the first question, we were talking behind stage is, understanding the money value story or whatever it is that we're sharing, in terms of what is driving us, what is our why, and all these things that are behind that money value story. So, Manny, that was your kind of aspect about this topic. So, kind of expound on that for everybody and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. This is Emanuele Sembroni. Again, I was born and raised in Rome, Italy. As you can tell by the accent, I'm also a very proud American citizen that I became in 2022. I'm a former professional soccer player. I played professionally for over 26 years all over the world. Started in Italy, then transitioned in Switzerland, and then ended up in the United States with my wife, which is also an American citizen. Then while we were all experiencing the pandemic change and transition, I decided to retire from professional soccer and I transitioned to financial services, which is the reason why I live right now, providing some additional value to people when it comes to making the right choices with their finances, both short-term and long-term. So this is why we were discussing before when it comes to giving value to money and what it means to you. It's literally like giving value to yourself and then transition that to the object, which is the money and what it makes us comfortable. And it gives us what we call a serenity for any choice that we need to make in life. Thank you.
I love that. And, I think it's really interesting, seeing what it's like to be a professional athlete and then transitioning back to, I don't know if life is ever normal, at least for me, but to me, it just seems like it would be a little bit of a difference, do people follow you around, want your autograph? I'm just kind of curious about that.
Well, the transition is literally a real transition, right? So as a former athlete, as a pro athlete, you grow up with being under the spotlight, right? Which is a good and bad thing in a way that you experience majority of your young age, under pressure, but also like being under the spotlights, talking to people, having a lot of attention. And then once the light goes off, also that notoriety, also that things that you've been growing up with, they're gone as well, right? So you gotta be able to and flexible to go to that transition and forget about who you were before. Be grateful for that, but also there is many out there. There is Emmanuel out there. It's not Emmanuel the athlete right now, so it's Emmanuel experiencing a new life, and this is why I decided to challenge myself. So something that I'm passionate about, and it started with myself, with my personal finances and my family.
Love that. Love that. I mean, I think that's amazing. So I feel honored. We have a pro athlete with us on the call. I'm just saying, I think there's so much that we could go into with that alone, the discipline, the focus, the clarity, all those things you have to be able to even navigate through a game, so to speak, getting yourself game ready, and then just everyday life. So, I mean, that's like another show, but I love that. So, the next question we're thinking about is, you know, how does money help us to make an impact? You know, um, Matt, you were talking about how we can talk about sharing, you know, the wealth with other people. So expound a little bit more about your thoughts on that and introduce yourself.
Hi, LaChelle. Hi, Raschell. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Allen. I'm founder of Kudos. Kudos is about making change for people, making everybody possible to live healthier, wealthier, happier lives. Kudos is a new way of doing business based on a very old way of doing business, which is that customers and staff come first and people at the top come last. I think that money is something that is important to all of us, some of us more than others. Whether we're young or old, we focus on money as an individual position from where we come from and what our existence is. And I believe that almost everybody, except for a few people, need a little bit more. And that's what I am trying to do, is to provide just a little bit more. And by providing a little bit more, I don't just mean some money in people's hands, but about being healthier and wealthier as well, in terms of financially stable, because we have access to the essentials that we need in our lives, because taxes are paid more responsibly. Things that are abundant to all of us, not just certain people in certain parts of the world. And that includes things from food to energy to housing, to health. Those are all basic things that we should all be entitled to. So, and we can all live our miracles, because we really are not about money. We're about giving rather than taking. We should be about love rather than hate and exploitation of people. And that's where I come from, is to enable everybody to financially benefit whilst not seeing any deficit to anybody.
Love that. You know, and so I'm just going to bring Paul in on this, because he works, you know, from a standpoint of having Christ-centered type values and principles. So, you know, it sounds like, as you're talking about this, Matt, about compassion and empathy for other people. So when you're able to see this disparity between, you know, someone having something and someone not, you know, how do you navigate through that? You know, I'm going to ask that to Paul, because it's being able to see a need, but, you know, also there's a gap between the need being fulfilled. So how do you navigate through that? Especially sometimes you may not have the money. So what is it that you can do to kind of help be a buffer in that situation?
I'm Paul Cole. Thanks for having me. So that's a really good question, and there's really only one way to answer this. You have to have enough money for yourself to live, and then you've got to be able to have enough money to give away and you still live. For that to happen, you have to make a lot of money. So I spent a little over 25 years of my life in ministry, and I got to a point where I wanted to do more. And I realized to do more, I had to have the funds to do more. And there's no getting around it. I mean, I could try and serve more, but I was already giving everything I could. So I realized I could give more just with the brain that God gave me, and the abilities and my strengths, and everything worked well towards starting a business and starting a company. So I've gone that route, and our mission, everybody on the team, our entire mission is people oriented. But to get to those people, we realize we have to acquire so much wealth that we really want to make a lasting change. And we're talking about providing free adoption services for families who can't afford it, but they qualify but can't afford adoption. I mean, and that's just in itself is like $40,000 to $50,000 per kid. And we want to be able to do things. We've got a list of things that we've written out over the past 5 years of things that we want to try and handle wisely. But to get to that point, right now, all of us are in this kind of transition of sacrifice where we can't give financially to anyone because we're barely providing for ourselves to get the company up and running. And there's that kind of moment of what can we give? Well, right now we can only give of what little time we have, and that's about it.
I think that's a real challenge that a lot of people have, not just within their company, but, it could be their personal life. You're on the fence between your immediate family and then your extended family, or your mother or an older person in your family that you have to provide for. So that is a very real issue that we possibly can talk about addressing. And going over to you, Dan, about the mindset that our view of money can change as we age.
Absolutely.
And when we're young, we have energy. It's about chasing, and then later on it transforms. So please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. My name is Dan Goodman. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called True Commish. What True Commish does, it's the first of its kind solution for salespeople to validate their pay and identify pay errors to go back to their employer and recover monies that they earned but were never paid on. There are no solutions for reps today. They have to rely on manual processes and very often are limited to even access to the data to check it. And comp plans are very complex, and there's money. Every single person who's ever been a sales rep at some point in their career has experienced wage theft. And that's why I've created True Commish. As a way to promote True Commish, it's really taken a turn a little bit. I've become sort of the advocate for employees everywhere in every way. This consulting business has kind of taken off. It's been one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to do in my lifetime. People are suffering right now in the job market. Layoffs are happening left and right. Severance agreements, employment contracts. People are being put on false PIPs so that they can get fired without unemployment or severance. There's lots of bad behavior that's happening left and right. And I have identified the need and have created a service to be the advocate for folks when they're most in need and they have nowhere else to turn. So I've helped about 75 folks just in the last couple of months redoing their severances and being that advocate and to stand up for themselves and to not be bullied or intimidated, to not be taken advantage of, to not have regret down the road that, hey, I got walked all over or I was stolen from or I wasn't treated right and I didn't stand up for myself. So that's kind of the role that I'm trying to fill there, to kind of be that advocate, to encourage folks to stand up for themselves, to have them access to the information, to go back to their employer, whether it's about a commission or a pay error, whether it's about negotiating more money for their severance, whether it's about making sure that they're in a safe spot when they're signing an employment agreement, so that they're signing what they think that they're signing, that they're not getting fooled with their stock equity grants, or that, their compensation, their variable compensation might change once they come on board and they've already resigned from the previous place. So that's kind of a passion that I have. As far as the topic about money, it's something that's, very important to me over the years. When I was younger, I was sort of money driven. When I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. We lived in sort of a lower middle class family and but working parents. And didn't really have much. And so I always never wanted to be in that position. So I was very sort of money driven. I remember when the first thing I wanted to do was go out and buy my first big color screen TV when I got my first place. I always wanted to have that TV. And it changes with age. Really, when you're young, now's the time that you shouldn't be money driven. Now you should be investing in yourself and in your career and be able to move forward. And then once you start having more responsibilities and bills and mortgages and kids that you need to provide for, then money is more important. You need to do more planning with it and around that. So there's various stages of your life. I'm at the stage of my life right now where money isn't that important, that it's more about the impact that you can have with yourself and the money that you've accrued in your lifetime. If you accrue money, then you can free up your time, and time is really your most valuable resource. As Manny had indicated. Actually, I think it was Paul that had mentioned it. So that's kind of my thought. I'm at the stage right now where it's about helping people being able to impact lives, encouraging folks to stand up for themselves and to not be stolen from or have regret down the road.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because you're talking about, how we can look at our childhood and how it can frame how we end up as adults, and so we're thinking about how we don't want to repeat maybe what we experienced as a child. So how did you reframe that? Because there's a point where, I don't know, we can't relive our childhood. But there's some things that we can't still walk away from. So
I'll tell you something a little different as an example. I'll talk about that one as well. So everywhere I went as a child, my parents relate to every single thing. It could have been religious holidays, or it could have been events or sporting events, children's events. And it bothered the heck out of me. It was embarrassing. I didn't like it. We were always late. We'd be coming into something and it was already going on. And now we have to ask people to stand up and get into our seats and things like that. So I have always made a conscious effort as soon as I went on my own that I was always 5 minutes early to everything I do in life. So that's just kind of that thing. As far as the money, as far as what you learned from your experiences, I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at it from a glasses half empty kind of view, but I kind of looked at all the things that I didn't like growing up and I wanted to do the opposite. So, whether it was about money or how you treated folks or how you did things, if I didn't like it, whether it was for my own family or things that I looked at, I kind of evaluated it and said, I want to do it differently. And then made a conscious effort to do that as I aged and grew up.
Love that. Go ahead, Misty. You had something you wanted to ask?
I did. So what I love about what we were talking about with the childhood and just making the decision, like he just said, I just said, this is what I don't want to do anymore. A lot of the hidden things that we have about money, we did a course here last summer, but it was from that Steve Harvey video of asking for 300 things, and about 30 things into that, your brain will go, I have some problems around money, and it'll show up in what you're asking for because it'll let you know if you are thinking very limited. Or are you thinking the opposite? I just want to be the opposite of my parents, which in your case, may have been the greatest choice. But in some places, we go so far the opposite that we actually hurt ourselves. My son's going to join in the background. So I love that you talk about that. And what, LaChelle, back to what you were mentioning, sometimes our thoughts on money are very subconscious and unconscious. And so one of the best ways that I think to bring all that you guys have just talked about together to answer LaChelle's question is being honest about your thoughts about money to start with. And then that way, if there's a thought that why do I have that? Why do I want $100,000 a month? Or why do I want this much in retirement? Then it kind of helps you address, well, because my parents, okay, that's something I can think about. And then you can make that decision. I don't want to do what they did, or I do want to do what they did, maybe just in a different way. So I just love all that came together because my mind was just tingling about that you do have to address what is it that I don't want to repeat that I may have grown up with.
I love that.
Thank you.
And then even like we're thinking so you have abundance, you have scarcity, right? And I was hearing Paul talk about, we need more money to help more people, but we've got things going on in our personal lives. So how do you transform that thought, where we're in abundance, and because it does exist for a lot of people, they think, they don't have the idea that there's lack of anything, right? Kids, they think, hey, we're going to live forever. We got all the money we need in the bank. You can just go to the ATM and get money out. I mean, there's this abundance thinking. So how do we get to that abundance thinking? What are some things that you guys can share that have helped you with that?
If you don't mind, I'll go first and then I'm going to mute because he's about to yell again. So my favorite way, if I'm thinking lack, as soon as I think, well, I can't accomplish that. I don't know how. I don't have the means. As soon as I imagine the alibi or the reason or the challenge, then I immediately begin a story past that. So if it's short money, I want to help these people, but I need this exact amount of money. I just immediately write, I got what I needed, and now what? Just think past it, because that way we don't get stuck in the rut of thinking in the lack. Just, you don't have to know the how, just go ahead and move past that. So that would be my answer, is don't repeat lacking stories.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point to Misty as well, is catching yourself. I always say that 17 seconds of catching yourself in that frame of thought of where you're going and kind of reframing it. You know, I do a lot of times where I'm like, wait a minute, no, I'm not going to think that. I'm going to think this instead, and I'm going to make it work. So I think it's also teaching ourselves and teaching our youth how to reframe those thoughts around money. I think that's really important as well.
So I'd like to take up on that, because I don't think that our youth are educated properly about finance. I don't think that there is enough education and awareness in our societies, in our schools, in our families, other than the perception of where we come from. In much in what Dan was saying, and a few other people as well, about we look at where we were as children and envisage where we would rather be as adults. We look at it and think, oh, we were poor when we were younger, we'd like to be richer when we're older. We had lots of stuff when we were young, don't really need those stuff. I'd rather be giving to somebody else because I want to be beneficial to people. Then we have the other end of the scale, and Dan mentioned that older people should really not be too concerned about money in some ways. I've come across a lot of older people who are extremely concerned about money because they have so little of it, possibly through some thing that they've done or not done in their lives, but whatever that situation is, they don't have enough. And for somebody who's elderly and unable to work, doesn't have family or friends that can support them, being able to live that life, being able to afford to, in my country, first world country, in my first world country, a place where they might not be able to turn on the heating or the lights or be able to eat food because their pension doesn't stretch far enough for those things, is a real concern for them. And sometimes we need to listen to some of the older people who are not doing so well to learn about how we can build a future for them that's financially stable for all of us as we grow older. You look at France, where there's mass protests about the changing retirement age. You look at the US, where the retirement age is growing older and older and older. You look at the fact that really some of the countries that we consider to be not that beneficial to their people, some of those countries, their pensions exist in much better existence for people than we do in our first world countries. I think we need to look at finance more specifically about how it benefits people and how we can change that from early age to understand from the lessons of older people how we can benefit people as we go forwards, because that really is the key to financial success, in my opinion.
So if I can just add on to that, a couple of quick points that Matt made. I just want to clarify the point that I made earlier. I wasn't saying that older people don't, have expenses or need money. What I was comparing is that when you're younger, you don't have money and you're seeking it. And as you accrue wealth and money throughout your life, now that you have money, you're less concerned about it. There certainly is an issue with healthcare and costs and the aging population, by all means, that a large portion of them, frankly, are on welfare and can't even afford their lives or take care of themselves. And the government is picking up that tab. So by no means did I imply that, that if you're older, then therefore you have money, because that's absolutely not the case. It was comparing when you were younger. Matt made a really good point that I'd like to touch on about the education of society around finances. I think that's just a huge issue. There are no courses. I mean, I was a finance major, and I just kind of have a thing for numbers and love modeling and things like that. I mean, I'm talking to 40, 50, 60-year-old professionals that are the most impressive people in the world, and they have no idea how to run their own finances. They have no idea about how to negotiate certain things like a severance agreement or something. So I think that at an early age, in high school, there should be mandatory requirements as part of your high school diploma that you should have a basic education about savings and finances and money and the stock market and compounding and the different things that are available to you, like 529s and Roths and 401ks and all of these different things that are out there. Because frankly, I think that the system that we all live in is broken. It's set up for only the wealthy to succeed in, because the people who don't have it, they don't get the privilege or the pleasure of riding what their ancestors had done. And that the system is set up today where we're not giving everyone an equal footing and an equal chance.
We're not teaching them.
And that everybody should have that. I don't want to dominate here, so I'll
Oh yeah, I love that. You know, so Manny, what are your thoughts on some practical things that we could implement or conversations that we can have? Because I think, you know, a lot of times we can talk about educating, but you know, we got people watching, they have children, and or maybe they are, you know, over a team of people that are working with them. How can we kind of take some of those practical steps to raise the conversation or giving them some things that they can practice to kind of build that muscle?
Yes. So first thing first, everybody has very good point over here. So I was listening and paying attention of everything and learning from everybody. When it comes to finances and things, I like to go with some quotes or expression, right? There is one that says, self-knowledge is great, but self-knowledge is not enough, right? So how do we help ourselves and others by increasing and getting better with financial education, right? So everybody brought very good point, and it can start with the school system, right? Or it can start with courses in education. And this is the reason why we exist as that we are in financial services, is because what we want to do for our people, we just want to bring additional value, right? And educate people how and what they can do with their money, which is not only related to like solutions and products, because that comes at the end, but literally understanding what option do they have. So during the course of their life, and this is something that is related to them, and it is a very good point when he says every age has a different goal and a different perspective, right? And of course, when you start and you're young, your goals are different than when you go at retirement. So this is why we should imagine this as walking up to the top of a mountain, right? So if you walk up to the mountain, you got the climbing, you know, which is your accumulation, your young age, and then all the resources that you bring with you in your backpack when you get up to the mountain, and then you gotta come down, which that's retirement, right? So what we want to educate over there is like, hey, the same way that you're going up, the same way that you had to come down, so you're never run out of options. So this is all good things and this is why we exist on our side. And I believe, yes, there should be more financial education for everybody, you know, and start with yourself.
Love that.
I was do you mind if I pop in, LaChelle?
Absolutely.
I wanted to come. Manny, I was also in financial services for 20 years before I became a publisher. And so what I love about this is that we have what you just said, start with yourself. I was able to be my first customer. I was able to be an example. If someone came into my office with an expensive $7 drink and they would say, well, I can't do that. I can't set up that retirement right now. I could say, that's why I drink water. I didn't have to shame them. I didn't have to say you shouldn't have bought that. I could just say, that's why I drink water. That's $7 a day I can put in retirement. So I love that we can be the example. We can be, because like we said, it would be great if they taught that in schools. It would be great if all of us taught that to our own children. But in the meantime, what we can do is really show people that spending money is not the most important value to accumulation. And how you look in society may not be the most important element to accumulation. And then when you retire is also dependent on how you want to look in retirement. And that's going to be really different for all of us. So me being my example, you being your example, and all of us on this panel, just being the example of how we talk about money openly. And we don't have to pretend like all the money is going great. We can call and say, hey, I have a question. I don't know what this rollover means. And just be accepting that we don't know everything in the room. Ask someone else who is in that seat and let them inform you. And then just start with yourself. So thank you for letting me pop in, LaChelle. I just wanted to say that because I love what he said.
If I can just add on to what Misty said, I think it was a great point. It's something I'm really passionate about. So I've been keeping a monthly budget since 1989, every single month. I track 35 expense categories. I track every inflow and outflow to the penny. I track every investment every month to the withdrawals, deposits, and change in investment value. With a press of a button, I can update my net worth instantaneously. I've been tracking this every month since 1989. I know exactly what we spend our money on. I know exactly where we can cut back. I know what's disposable. I know what's required. I think that if more people did this and it was something that was taught in schools, or there was a class for it in college or something that showed you and provided you some of these spreadsheets or templates or models, that it would make a huge difference in society. The amount of money, someone put a comment in the comments here about working in a credit union and the checks that were going out for the stimulus checks, how they were wasted. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, it was literally just like pouring the money down the drain. It really was. And it's what led to killing our economy right now, with the runaway inflation and the liquidity that was available in the system. So I just wanted to add that point that I too, I'm always looking to save money anywhere I can. I've been doing it for 35 years. And as a result of that, not after having any big wins from work or IPOs or anything else, I've accumulated a decent amount of wealth, and it's not from making a lot of money. It's from doing it the right way and spending it and being frugal with it.
I think that, if I may interject here, that's also, like you had said, Danny, it is something that should be taught. And the thing is, a lot of times here in Canada, with the checks that did come in during that time, a lot of people did the same thing. They went out and bought things that were materialistic, and it didn't serve them. And it's just like that saying of people that win the lottery, within a year or two, they're broke again. And it's because they're going out and buying all these materialistic things that are not going to serve them happiness, and not putting it into things that are going to give them that long-term support. And so I think that education of knowing how to invest your money is really, really important. I learned it through my life by making mistakes and taught it to my children, because I thought, okay, I've made some mistakes, but I'd like them to have that knowledge, because no one taught them that in school, not at all. Yeah. So I think that's a very good point.
Thank you. And I say live within your means. I mean, like, if I wanted to, I could probably go and afford to take my family on a $50,000 vacation. I mean, we go on $8,000 vacations. I've never gone on a vacation in my life that cost more than $10,000. It's just kind of how I'm wired. I mean, I wouldn't have a good time on a vacation spending $50,000. So I just say, live within your means, spend as you're comfortable, plan ahead, and plan for the future. I mean, sadly, the American economy is based on credit card debt and personal debt. The whole government, what do we got? Is it $13 trillion or whatever the number is? I just put off the top of my head. And that's how society is,
I was going to add Paul in this because we haven't heard from him, but I was just thinking, when you hear all this about the disparity, how do you get people to have a mindset of giving? Because I think, oh my gosh, things are so bad. And, how do you get them to think that even what they're doing is going to make a difference, if it's a little bit, because people are a lot of times living paycheck to paycheck, or, they don't have good financial knowledge about their finances. And so how do you get people to give, Paul?
So education, they are absolutely correct. Did any of you guys learn what a 401k was when you're in high school?
Mm-mm.
I never heard anything about it, but so that's where it's got to start. It's got to start with the education level, because if you want to give people equal opportunity, they got to have equal knowledge. So, but we're not going to change the education system here with us. It's not going to happen. So, but doesn't mean we don't try and change it. But so that means the family's got to teach it. Well, family doesn't know anything about it because they didn't learn it. My first investors, after 3 or 4 years, came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to get our money back." And I was like, "I'm sorry, has no one explained to you how investing works?" And here's this couple, 65 years old, and I'm having a conversation explaining what it means when you invest money in something. And it's just, so if you're not going to get it from your family, where do you get it from? How do you even know you need to get it?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other side of that is I am the complete opposite of Dan. Like Dan, numbers, the idea of keeping a monthly budget sounds about as appealing as a colonoscopy. I mean, it just makes me start sweating thinking about it. But I know this about myself. So I surround myself with people who do like people like Dan. My co-founder, God rest his soul, John Sullivan. He was a financial planner. He had reached the pinnacle of his education as far as all the degrees you can get with financial planning, the CFP, all the different acronyms and things like that. Mm-hmm. He'd gotten them all, and I knew I needed him with me when I started this venture. And he knows me well enough to know that I don't quit. So he joined me. You know, he was dean of a university out in Washington, very brilliant guy. But John passed away a year and a half ago to cancer. And
sorry about that.
It was rough. It was quick and it was hard. But, you know, God provided a way. He brought Greg Sloan. Greg Sloan is one of the most brilliant financial planners in the industry. I mean, he started Daniel's Group in out of Georgia. You know, he knows nothing about video games. I didn't need him to know anything about video games. I needed him for his mind, his disposition, his personality, because he complimented me. He compliments me very well, just like John did. And I've got Nicole, who is my other co-founder, and she's a very legal mind-driven type person. So if you don't know it, surround yourself with someone who does. That's about the only thing you can do when you don't know anything about it, or start watching a bunch of YouTube videos.
I love that. You know, but you're bringing up things to like trust. I love that. So go ahead, Matt. What do you want to add?
First of all, I would much rather do the spreadsheets any day of the week than order up a colonoscopy, whatever that is. I have no idea. Not my sort of thing. That's not the most important point here, though. We're talking about economies, and we're talking about the fact of these checks that happened in America and other places. And here in the UK, we had money given to us, and we're saying that our economies are based on debt. And the fact that we don't have enough money to go around and things like this. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that, number one, the situation with the stimulus checks is born out of the fact that willy-nilly the banks and the powers that be can decide when and where and how to produce more money, which waters down our economies and the financial status of anybody who's on the lower income. So that's number one fact. Number two fact is that the people who had those stimulus checks and rushed out and spent them, partly that was because they were led to do that, because the government was telling them that what we should do with that money is go and spend it into the economy. But that money was already regenerated out of money that didn't exist. So all that was doing was wasting space and time. Really, what we should be doing is identifying a pot of money, let's say that some certain rich people have at the top, and finding a way to repurpose that into the economy and not lose it out of our economies, and instead keep it in the economies, give it to people to spend. Not a problem at all, because they're spending it into the economy. The problem exists when that money doesn't exist in the economy, and then we're spending it because that money doesn't exist. That doesn't benefit anybody. All that does is it's smoke and mirrors about, yeah, we've got enough, but we haven't. Nobody has. Whether you've got a $100 holiday or a $50,000 holiday, doesn't really matter. Financially, we are all currently very unstable. You look at people like shareholders of some of the biggest companies in the world. Those companies' shares are going down. Some of the banks that people are investing in, those banks are going down. Why is that? Is it because they've got sufficient money? No, it's because some of the, and I don't want to get into politics because I don't even live in the US, but some of the money that exists in some of these institutions, we have to wonder whether that is there or whether it's not. Because again, that's generated off the back of a computer system rather than actual valuable, tangible assets. The valuable, tangible assets that we have are ourselves and our abilities to create wealth, not just in terms of monetary value, but in terms of giving to each other, being able to realize that we all have value, and that exists beyond the zeros and ones that populate some computer system within whatever bank or financial institution, from local post office here in England through to the governmental decisions that are made about how we're going to invest the billions and trillions of dollars into various organizations that have already got that money, but they just recirculate it because it's suitable for the people at the top. It's about finding a way for us all to benefit, not just the wealthy, and that comes from understanding money. That is not just education at school, that's education for each and every one of us, because we all do not have a conception really of where our money comes from. We have our own view of things. We get sometimes misinformation, we get led down paths. Sometimes we don't have enough money to even have the internet to look at YouTube videos. Sometimes we haven't had the education to get to that point. We live in a world that is abundant, not just because we keep adding zeros and ones onto things, but because we're people and because we have enough actual tangible assets in the world, enough value in terms of food, enough value in terms of land, enough value in terms of all of the things that we need as human beings to survive and then be able to move forwards in a system that benefits everybody, not just the people at the top, and not just by creating zeros and ones.
Well, thank you so much for that passion. I love that. Go ahead. Who was speaking?
I just want to add a couple quick things to what he said. I really agree with figuring out how to get some of the wealth down a little bit. And in Massachusetts, in our last election in November, they actually passed a millionaire's tax, so that everyone who made more than $1 million was taxed marginally additionally into what they would normally pay for anything over $1 million. So it was very controversial. It barely passed. Which was quite interesting. They're worried that now people are going to move out of Massachusetts, but we haven't seen that happen yet. I did want to mention one thing about that Paul had mentioned. Colonoscopies are extremely important, Paul. I hope we're not dissuading anyone from getting them. I had life-saving emergency colon surgery 4 years ago and would not be around today otherwise. So I strongly encourage everybody to get their colonoscopy, no matter how horrible it is. The prep is much worse than the actual exam. And the last thing I want to mention is one of our very astute commenters, Paul, about what Matt was talking about regarding the banks and having the reserves and the money. Paul made some very, very excellent points in the comments that it's a fractional reserve banking system, that they do require to hold funds within the banks in case there are runs on them. And with the inflation that took place recently, those were waived that caused some of the issues that we're seeing in the banking system right now. So,
love that. I mean, you guys are bringing up some good points, and I think we definitely have just kind of scratched the surface about a lot of these thoughts, values, issues, because everybody's different. They have a different perspective. So I want to kind of conclude with us going around talking about how can we model trust to be able to talk about it. Part of it is being honest. If we are struggling with our finances, you mentioned, someone mentioned that they were talking to somebody about investments when they were in their 60s, so how do we kind of bridge that gap to get the trust for people to be honest? So that's going to be the last question that we'll go around and ask. But this has been a wonderful conversation. And for all of you guys that have been commenting, I encourage you to reach out to our panel and have this conversation, extend it further than just here, where you can really dive a little deeper on some of these different topics. So, Manny, I'm going to ask that question to you. How can we instill trust? Did you have something, Misty? I'm sorry.
Well, I thought you were going to say Misty when you said Manny, so I was quick drawing my name to unmute myself. So, Manny, you carry on.
Okay. So this is very this is very important, and it came from everybody in this beautiful conversation. Okay, so Paul mentioned that yes, somebody that trusted and unfortunately is no longer here, but he had another person that created the organization. So it is all about finding the people that you can have a bond with, that you can learn from it, right? So when you hear this thing like the one size fits all, right?
Did he pause?
I
Yeah,
think
he's
we may
locked
have
up.
lost him.
I think he got muted because he was
Very dramatic pause.
He's very good at
A
standing still.
cliffhanger.
At least he looks really good in the freeze. Usually,
He
like your
does.
mouth is open, your eyes half closed. I mean, he looks great in that.
No, he looks perfect.
I think he was
He
going to
looks
say one size fits all for a colonoscopy.
His scruff
Right.
looks
Oh,
so much
Matt.
better than my
Yep.
scruff.
Oh.
You noticed that? Okay.
Can
There
you
you go,
guys
Manny.
can you guys
Hey,
hear?
there
Manny,
you are.
you
I'm
froze
sorry.
for a minute.
I
Go ahead.
don't know what happened. I apologize.
You said the one size fits all. That's where we heard, and then you were like
Right.
power pose.
Okay, so I did that on purpose. Let's say that. But what I'm trying to say is, everybody has a different story, a different background, a different personality, right? So the most important step that you need to take when it comes to talking about your finances, or taking the first step, which is super uncomfortable, right? Because nobody likes to talk about their finances. And I was one of them, before learning about how comfortable you gotta be being uncomfortable, right? So it's identify number one, identify your purpose, your why, and how am I gonna get there, right? Who is the person that, if I cannot go by myself, is gonna hold my hand and take me where I want to go? So this is the first important step. It's like identify who's gonna be the one that's gonna help you through this life journey when it comes about financial choices, right? So it doesn't mean that because Manny is in financial service, is gonna be the guy of everybody. You gotta relate with your financial professional, because it's all a trust and about relationship. And the more you trust, and the more it's gonna get you there, because that's what we live for. That's what I want to best to people.
Love that. Well, we thank you so much. Oh,
Now
go
I'm
ahead.
ready. Now I'm ready to add to what Manny said. And so what you talked about, I call my unconditional reciprocated love, knowing the right person. And so with what Manny was saying, if you have a question and you're not sure who you can trust, I would ask a trusted friend, who is your financial person, rather than going to LaChelle and go, hey, I don't know what to do about my retirement. LaChelle's my friend and we can chit chat all day long, but her opinion may not be the right professional experience for me. So her telling me who her financial person is, because I already trust her in this space, then I can go and have that interview. That's another one. Interview your people, like you were so talking about, Manny, so that you know that's the right fit. Because the two colonoscopy guys, Paul and Dan, they're going to want different financial people, or at least a different delivery, and the same person might be able to deliver to both of them. And I'm going to end that with Cologuard can be done in your own home, and it's essential for everyone over the age of us. So I'm going to end that as a Cologuard. Your doctor can help you, and you don't even have to go do all that prep work.
Oh my goodness.
I love it. This is the thing, having these conversations, speaking of which, since you brought that up, we are doing a cancer walk, pancreatic cancer walk, this Saturday. It's in Virginia. So I'm going to put the link in the comments of this broadcast. But, maybe you want to walk, maybe you just want to share a post, so we can end pancreatic cancer. But I think this is good, because this is what conversations are about. You have an intention, be open to spontaneity, because you see that other things can come out of something that you hadn't even thought about. So I love how we're doing a health care moment. Okay. So we're over to you, Paul, for your final thoughts about trust, relationships. What do you want to say about it as we conclude today?
it's hard to trust people with your money because usually people who teach you about money cost money. I mean, and the ones who are better at it cost more money, usually. So there's got to be some type of understanding that knowledge is going to cost you something. You've got to spend something. It may not be wealth, but it's going to be either time. It's going to be something to get more knowledge. And people have got to want to know more. You know, this couple that invested, it was when John sat down with them and talked to them about how this whole thing worked and began explaining things more, it was like they were learning something for the first time ever. I mean, they were like captivated children. And it was so interesting to see it. I think of all the people I know that I graduated with that they know nothing about investing or finances or anything like that. But I don't think they would sit down with me and talk to me about it because they don't want to share what they make or how much money they have or where it goes, because there comes a judgment with that. So there's all sorts of things wrapped around this idea of our money. And we got to really start learning to let go of the feelings around it. Money is just it's an object. It's something that we use, but try to keep emotions away from it. So the more emotion you put into it, the more emotion that it'll screw you up. And you find yourself going after money for the wrong things. So that would be my closing thought is be mindful of the emotions that you attach to money. If you want to know more about money, let go of some of the emotion.
Now share where we can get a hold of you, and then we'll go back to Manny for him to share where people can connect with him. But where can people connect with you?
Right now, I'm mainly on LinkedIn, writing on LinkedIn, posting. We just started a YouTube channel. We've got our website, pashkogaming.com. But you can find me at Paul Shane Cole on Facebook, and that'd be the quickest way to get a hold of me. In LaPel, Indiana.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thanks so much for being here, Paul. Appreciate it. So, Manny, where can we connect with you?
You can connect with me over here on LinkedIn. As you can see, Emanuele Manny Sembroni. Very easy. I'm over there. You find everything about who I am, what I do, my story. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I always post and share some personal experience and some thoughts because I like to have conversation with people. So you can easily find me over here. I'm on Instagram, same name, Facebook, same name. And then if you see there is some interactive over there in my bio where you can say book or schedule with me. If you want to talk more about your goals, you can also schedule my calendar over there. But I'm happy to have a nice conversation. It doesn't mean we got to go anywhere, but that's where you can find me.
Love that. Thanks so much for being here, Manny. So we are over to you, Matt. What are your thoughts about trust and opening up or honesty, whatever you want to close with? It's over to you.
Okay. So Paul said that he had a different view earlier. I have a very different view. My view is that we need more emotion into money. We need more emotion into finance. We need more emotion into giving rather than receiving. We need movement away from focusing about all of our talk about how we're going to aspire to have greater financial freedom in the world from bolstering our own financial situation. We live in a world that is uncertain and unclear about the changes that are coming, and those changes need to be positive changes. And the only way to make positive change is to put the right characteristics into that, the right feelings into it. And as much as I've talked about it already, love and charity and giving is the way forward, not taking and greed and hate. Those are the things that we need to do away with. Instead, we need to figure out how we can give and therefore receive. money is a wonderful thing if you've got it. Money is a very bad thing if you don't. Let's try and even that up so that then everybody can benefit rather than just a few at the top at the cost of the people at the bottom. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm available just on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube as well. You can find me at Kudos UK. Just type that into the search bar. You can search this lovely little thing at the bottom. Hashtag you are the miracle. Let's have a chat. I'll explain why each and every one of us can make a difference to the financial situation for everybody else in the world. And that comes from our unique individual personality, our position. I don't want to say too much. LaChelle, you know I don't like talking about what I do. I like to talk to people individually about that. So if anybody wants to reach out, please feel free. If you can't find me, speak to LaChelle. I'm sure she'll connect you to me.
Well, thanks so much, Matt, for being here, and appreciate all of your points. I love it because, you know, we're getting a spin on a topic from different perspectives and definitely helping us to think. So I love that. So Dan, we're over to you with your final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to talk about real briefly is it's kind of a passion of mine, and it has to do with transparency. I think that if everyone had mutual respect, if there was transparency around money, around pay, around the relationship between the employer and the employee, that all these games that went around with pay transparency, with pay errors, with taking advantage of folks, the bullying and intimidation tactics that take place, you know, I think that if there was just one common thread throughout society that sort of never has been there historically is transparency. If we were just all open and honest and forward with regarding money or regarding pay, treating people equally and respectfully, it will go a long way. I think it would change the way things are and the inequalities in society. I think there's a lot of hidden agendas, and I think that society is changing. If you look at what's gone on with the policing, and if you look with the Me Too movement and the dramatic shift in the employer-employee relationship, society is demanding changes. And I think that these same changes should take place around finances and around money and being honest and open and around equality.
Love that. No, and then where can we connect with you to hear more?
Thank you.
Of what
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Dan Goodman. I'm out of Boston. I'm also the CEO and founder of True Commish, TrueCommish. You can find True Commish online at www.truecommish.com. Reach out. I take calls all day long with folks, answering questions about finances, comp plans, employment agreements, you know, ways that they've been wronged. Always happy to take a 5 or 10 minutes with anybody to answer a few quick questions. And if it makes sense for us to go further and engage, I'm available to do so.
Love it. Well, we just thank all of you guys for being here today. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've got pages of notes over here. So many great points that you brought up. And we can't solve everything in one session, but I really invite everybody to connect with you guys. I want to thank everybody who was watching. And we look forward to this men's panel coming back again next month. Every last Tuesday of the month is when we have the men come and weigh in on their thoughts about the different topics. So honored to have had all of you guys here and looking forward to some more conversations. So you guys, thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having us.
All right. You're welcome. So we're going to go ahead and talk about our final takeaways. So please share, you know, Raschell, I know you kind of been bouncing in and out. It's like last week it was me. Now this week it's you. What were your final thoughts? What did you think about today?
I better talk quick because I'm afraid I'm gonna lose the connection and be gone again. Like, you know, the Wicked Witch of the East. Boing, gone again. So you know what's interesting? So prior to this call today, and I find this so interesting. So my daughter's on social media, and I hear that a video game in 3 days, this shows you where people are with finances. And I wanted to share this, but I couldn't. But within 3 days made over $1 billion in sales. A game which is
I heard about that. Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
Was it Grand Theft Auto?
It was Grand Theft
Yeah,
Auto.
isn't that
and
crazy?
I could not believe, and I thought in my head, is that where it's where people are, where they're more, they would give their money to something they can just play and lose themselves in because of what's going on with reality right now, with everything that's happening in the world. But in 3 days, and I thought, wow, that again, back to our original conversation about the money, people will take their money and put it into something that gives them pleasure, i.e. shopping, a new TV, to make themselves feel good. It's that feeling, that emotion of feeling good. So they'll spend the money. So that's something that I wanted to share, but I couldn't because I was popping in and out like a yo-yo with the internet. So,
and that is really true, you know, and, you know, where do we have good priorities or not good priorities? You know, when you're thinking about something like that, excuse me, because we are in a situation where people do need an escape. You know, there's a lot of things going on with our mindset, and people feel like they want to be able to have something, you know, to kind of neutralize that. So I don't know. I mean, what is that? Is it good or bad? I mean, it's kind of like, you know, how are we choosing? But I don't know. Grand Theft Auto, the name doesn't even sound good. It's it
not a
definitely
great
doesn't
video.
sound like anything positive. Okay.
It's not,
So,
but it shows
you know, but
it shows you where everybody's going with if they can in 3 days make that kind of sales, and it's not that expensive.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, I totally get that. All right. So Misty, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I buy a little bit counterculture with money. I'm a minimalist, and I really believe that money is like a calorie, and like Raschell said, it's a way to find a pleasure, whether that pleasure is comfort or travel, or you know, I chose a different route with money. I chose to retire early to really grossly reduce my expenses so that I could have the wealth of staying home with my son and publishing books. So I truly believe I'm wealthier than I've ever been in my life. I do not have the most income I've ever had in my life, but I have made a switch to what wealth means for me. And so I love that we touched on the fact that it's really different for each person. And whether you're the very linear person, like the one guest, I think Dan, or whether you're very, you know, I'm like, Paul, I don't want to know my budget. I live a very specific life, so I don't have to think about it. I don't buy extra stuff. I just live my life. And so that keeps my stress level down. So I really like that we had the multiple perspectives. And then for me, like I said, I'm all about if money's an issue, ask yourself why you need it and why you needed the other part of it, because it's just a way to exchange a thing. So if you're buying, I can have eggs come from my chickens, or I could go get a job to get a paycheck, to cash the check, to take the dollars to the store to buy the eggs. I chose to just choose this route. Not everybody wants to raise a chicken. A lot of people would much rather pay the dollars. But for me, it was a way to just reposition my wealth so that I don't have to budget that part of my groceries. It's just, well, they eat. They eat my leftovers. So anyway, that's, to me, wealth became like a calorie, a way to find pleasure. We have to have it for living, but we don't have to be obsessed with it. And it is definitely not something that I'm going to attach. I'm a no emotion to my wealth. I will not attach emotion to my wealth. I'll attach emotion to the wealth of my life, not just my bank account. That's all I have. That's my whole high horse on that. And you can find me at Campground TBD Publishing on Facebook, Mistilei Wriston on Facebook or LinkedIn, and it's Wriston with a W.
Love that. So, you know, this week is pretty big for you, Raschell. We forgot to mention that.
That's okay. I'm still rolling with the punches.
I feel you.
Yeah. So my podcast, The Transformational Soul Talks, is going to be aired and streamed through the Zondra TV network on Roku, Amazon, and Apple TV, and Tony TV out of Australia. So I'm really excited about sharing so many different stories from people all over the globe. Very excited about that. This Thursday, April 27th at 6 p.m. live streamed.
I'm excited. It's big on my calendar, Raschell. It's big on my calendar.
I mean, hey, we are just really getting that momentum going. So I'm excited about it because I think it's great. More conversations, more opportunities for people to grow and to learn. So I love that. So you have anything going on this week, Misty?
I do. I have a book releasing on Thursday. It's the Quantum Love Affair. It's actually, you read this for me. It's my solo book, The Man in the Glass. And it is, to me, it's a fabulous way to use writing to experience the life of your wealth that you created, that I desired. So I used my life and my writing to create my own wealth. So just the monetary. I didn't only limit it to monetary.
I love that. Now, so when is that launching?
Thursday, yes.
So everything's going to be the same day. I love that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're just not going to mess around. We're just going to bam, 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 bam. And then next week I'll be taking on, I'm going to start doing some small publishing jobs for people, like family cookbooks and family notebooks. And I'm doing one for a lady to give to someone for Mother's Day. So I'm going to be doing that this summer, some small publishing projects before I start the next big one.
Amazing.
That's
good. What about you?
Well, Mother's Day is coming up. So what is it, like a couple weeks?
Yeah, 2 more weeks. Yeah, 2 more weeks. I think will come out next week.
I love that. That's good stuff. I know it's like, oh yeah, Mother's Day, and it's like, well, what? Wait a minute, that's a couple weeks from now.
It's the 14th.
Yes, it's something. So I love that. Well, yeah, I just have my normal audio rooms going on LinkedIn. I'm going to be completing a study on the book Connected to Goodness. By David Meltzer. That's one we've been doing.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to be starting a new one next week. So everybody has to stay tuned to find out what that one will be. But really excited to continue these conversations. I'm just so inspired from, I think having these hard talks and conversations, really being able to have a platform to show people that, yes, the topic is challenging. However, we can still have the conversation and, we can just do it one step at a time. So I've loved what everybody shared. It really has helped me to just be able to listen, write some things down and kind of get the emotion out of it so that you can process what someone is saying. And so you can grow and learn from it. So I love that. So this has just been wonderful. I want to give a shout out to Dina, who has joined us, Mary, Paul, Gregory, Nancy, Mike Ashebrander was on. We've had quite a crew. JR,
in the comments.
You did good. I'm telling you, that was amazing because and that we had the Hounds of Business on. They had their own platform coming in. So I mean, just want to thank everybody for all their engagement, and we'll be going through the comments, but definitely by them coming and commenting, it's an important topic that we all can learn from. So glad that everybody was here. So anything else before we conclude?
No.
That you guys have in mind?
There's a thing on my heart that I want to say, because Matt, we were talking about the emotion. The positive emotion needs to stay with money, 100%. The positive emotion needs to stay with money. It's that negative, lacking emotion we need to let go of. So that's, I think, the defining line between the emotion and no emotion. Keep the growth, the expansion, the abundance, the gratitude. Keep the good emotions, and let's serve from that space. So hopefully that'll tie all that together. That's just been on my heart.
I love that. Well, that was a good point to make, because we do need to have some emotion to keep us moving. Emotion is energy in motion. So we definitely need to have something. So I appreciate that clarification. And there's no right or wrong answer. I think that we all come from it at different perspectives. And I could say something to my kids, they don't hear a thing I'm saying. My husband comes and says the same thing, and they're like coming to me like it's the first time they've ever heard it. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about how we're able to share and, what somebody else is willing to listen to. So I love it. So again, we thank our men for their candor, because this is how we all learn and how we can come together and mirror some of these hard conversations that we need to have we can have them together and show that it's not that hard. You know, we don't have to change and transform somebody at one time that we sit down, but we can gradually start the conversations so that we all can grow. So thank you guys again for joining us. And again, Thursday is the premiere for Raschell and the book launch for Misty. And we want to thank all of you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.